is our second stats explainer on the Trends, the Anfield Wrap, Neil Atkinson with Josh Williams, known as Distance Covered on Twitter and in other places, author of a book called Data Game as well, to work through. Well, first and foremost, we're going to still stick with expected goals. The first one of these really stripped it all the way back, and hopefully you had the time to watch that. If you haven't and you want it stripped all the way back, then jump in. We're going to go a little bit further with this one. We're going to stick with it, but we're going to talk about post-shot XG first and foremost. We're going to get on to talk about race charts, a little bit on situational stuff, and then trend lines. You don't need the images for it all the way through. I'd like to think we can explain them as we're going, but they will help with the concepts, and they do help with the way in which it goes. Post-shot XG, Josh, moving this along a little bit. The next part of what post-shot XG is meant to do, first and foremost, it was created as a model to help with assessing goalkeepers. It's worth pointing that out. And show how good that is. But increasingly, it can also be used to at least support a conversation around quality of finishing as well. Yeah. It is, you only get a post-shot XG number if it's on target. This is obvious common sense. Again, it feels like it's complicated maths. It's not. Literally, if the shot is not on target after it leaves the foot, it cannot go in. It could deflect and then it'll get an XG value, but allowing for the idea that someone is just through on goal one-on-one and they kick it wide, post-shot XG is 0. Yeah. You can only have a post-shot XG number after you've taken the attempt. It is a bit more contentious, isn't it, than expected goals, even in amongst the sort of the wider analytics community. It's newer, but also there is just obviously a couple more moving parts to it, including shot velocity. Yeah, well, I think when it comes to post-shot XG, even the name of it, post-shot XG, it sounds confusing, doesn't it?
Sticks in the craw.
It sounds intimidating, and I think when people think of shots, like the man on the street or whatever, you do think of the actual part where the player kicks the ball. That's not expected goals, that's post-shot expected goals. The actual kicking of the ball is the post-shot after the shot has been taken, if you get what I mean.
I sort of know what you mean, yes, the location, yeah.
Yeah, but it's hard to explain that sort of thing, I always find, because expected goals is about the location of the shot primarily.
Well, it's a little bit also about how it looks when it's all written down. You know, I literally have written these agendas here. There's one here, and you're right, okay, PS goes in capitals, and then X goes there, and then there's a G, and it feels like, is that a mathematical form? Then it's just sort of not. It's just basically, where's the ball going to go towards the net? Yeah. What's the goalkeeper done, and how hard's he hit it?
Yeah, exactly. And as you say, it offers an insight into finishing. You know, the players who do well with their post-shot XG, so they're putting more value on the shot with their attempt. And it offers an insight into goalkeepers in terms of their ability to save.
Just on that though, I think it's worth saying, isn't it, though, that if a shot is on target, unless it is a really weak effort, the expected goals of it, the post shot should be higher. If you see what I mean, logically it should be higher because we've taken out the idea of missing the goal. Yeah. So that it should be likelier, therefore it is going to go in. It's a poor effort if it stays. Maybe not if it stays the same, because that depends on the quality of the chance in the first place. But certainly if it dips, it means that you somehow managed to create the situation where prior to the shot it was less likely and all that sort of stuff, which is philosophically difficult, but they do manage it as we go. I want to start with an extreme example, and we talked on the last one about what it takes to have a really high number in expected goals. So there's a Curtis Jones goal against Newcastle back in the 4-2, I think it was in the end, on the 1st of January. And you can see, if you're looking at this, and if you can't remember it, Jones is 4 yards out from goal. There is no one in front of him. There is no blockage. It is with his foot, with his right foot, if that even matters. It doesn't. All the defenders are behind him, and it is a 0.94 expected goals chance. The goalkeeper is out the game completely. There is no one in net. 0.94, i.e. 6 of these still get missed. And you can remember them, they're on all the blooper reels videos. It does happen. As soon as it leaves his foot, and this is why it's an extreme example, the post-shot expected goals is 1.00. It is going in.
It's a goal, yeah.
You don't get many of them, but this is one of them, isn't it, Josh?
Yeah. I mean, it was an absolute tap-in. That is what you define as a sitter.
Exactly.
That's a sitter.
He should definitely score. Yeah. You don't get that is how rare they are, but there is one in there. So I want to use that as an extreme example. Then I want to use this one. It's another Nunez one where he storms off infamously after the Tottenham home game at the end of last season, goes a bit mad on his socials. The XG of the chance was 0.25. When Vicario saves it, the save he makes has a post-shot XG of 0.63.
Right. So that's a good shot.
And also it's a good save. I think that's the point, is that it's a good save. It is likelier from what Nunez does when the ball leaves his foot. It is likelier it goes in than it doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's what we're saying here. Vicario is doing brilliantly, even allowing for his initial positioning, which obviously influences things and influences the expected goals on it. Even then, he's doing brilliantly to save it, and it's a good effort from Nunez that doesn't hit the back of the net.
Well, Vicario, off the top of my head, did have a really good season.
He did.
I think when it comes to his numbers like that. So, yeah, some goalkeepers paint themselves as good shot stoppers in that sense, and Vicario was one of them last season. But Nunez, in that case, you know, he's put value on the shot with his actual finish. So if the keeper saved it to a certain extent, you have to hold your hands up a little bit and credit the goalkeeper as opposed to looking at yourself, which Nunez seems to just be furious with himself, didn't he?
Yeah.
On that day, I remember the game.
I mean, there's a point that people would have here, conversations. Some people would say, well, he should just have gone round him.
Yeah,
and then it makes it easier again, which is
statement.
You know, it's a first. Well, it's an interesting statement, but then other people would say, but if you go round him, it's fraught with risk. He could nick it off you. You could get your touch wrong. You know, that's not. It's not to say that if he'd have gone round him, he would have definitely. If he'd have tried to go round him, he would have definitely scored. You might have failed to go round him.
Yeah. And then you don't get any shot at all.
And then you don't get any shot at all. And then people are also furious, and you're furious with yourself as well. But it's just striking that that's a really good example of one where the statistical analysis turns it into it's a really good save. That's not to say that Nunez couldn't do differently and couldn't do better, but the statistical analysis turns it into one where you go, that's a really good save. Yeah. Next one I want to talk about is an intriguing one, because I can remember the effort, is Hudson-Odoi has a low value chance against Liverpool in the 1-0 against Nottingham Forest when Nunez scores the late winner. And it's near post for Kelleher. When he gets it on target, Hudson-Odoi, he's got two Liverpool defenders right in front of him, so he shouldn't get the shot away. So that's one of the reasons why it's low XG. He does, he gets it through the defenders. He then doesn't go far post, which is convention. He goes near post, but it's in the corner. So the XG on the shot is 0.09. The post shot XG, and Kelleher saves it, is 0.75. That is again, it's an example of an exceptional save.
Yeah.
But it's also an example of the flip. As soon as the shot gets through the barrier of the defenders, suddenly it becomes a really difficult effort for a goalkeeper to deal with.
Yeah, and Kelleher, you know, he hasn't really had enough minutes, has he, over the course of the past couple of seasons for us to actually say he's an above average shot stopper or anything like that. But in a moment like this, and I think this might have been a part of a run for him.
It was, yeah, when he's getting run of games.
Yeah, where he was quite good with a few saves and things like that. But that is a perfect example of Hudson-Odoi getting a low quality shot created for him, maybe, but then he adds value to it with his finish. You know, finding a corner and things like that and making it difficult for the goalkeeper. There
was recently when Watkins scores for England at the time of us recording this, he gets through the defender's legs.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a value in when you flip this. We've talked about it's hard to get it through the defenders. You've got three defenders in front of you, you have the shot, it should be blocked. But there is a lot to be said, isn't it? That as soon as, if you get it past that point and it is on target with a bit of pace behind it, goalkeepers either often aren't quite set right, and it's an interesting little. I'm not saying the data's wrong. It's not an argument with the data. It's just that there's a reality around the data, which is circumstances flips.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it was Schmeichel, I think, who maybe said once, if you're trying to block a shot, might have said this to Gary Neville, if you're trying to block a shot and the shot goes through your legs, I am dead. I think that's what Schmeichel's exact words. And you know, it goes back to that obstruction thing, you know, having your view obstructed and things like that. And all of it's relative, isn't it? All of it can be impacted, and every shot's slightly different. But what the numbers try and do is put shots in certain clusters and certain boxes and things like that.
Absolutely. So really quick, I just want to show Alisson last couple of seasons in terms of his goals saved above average, because this is what post-shot XG ends up doing for us. And last season, Alisson saved 6.54 goals above average in amongst from open play. We're not going to do penalties in there. That was 23-24, and then the season before that, 22-23, not least because he had more shots to face, 7.21 in there without going to penalties on there. It's all a bit noisy. That's all the shots on target if you're looking at it. Just this idea that we get to see that we know that Alisson's a good goalkeeper. This is even allowing for the idea that so much of what he does is around really, really smart positioning, so it shifts values and also at times forces people to miss. The whole nature of him, you know, he's an exceptional goalkeeper with his feet, but also just in the raw ability to save shots, deal with one-on-ones, he's an exceptional goalkeeper.
Exactly, and when it comes to Liverpool buying this player, obviously Liverpool spent a lot of money on him, and Liverpool are known for having this data-driven approach. Most people would be like, you know, what does that even mean? But if you can put a number on what Alisson is going to do in comparison to the average goalkeeper, the ordinary goalkeeper, when it comes to saving shots, you can then put a number on, right, how much is that worth then?
How many points?
Exactly, how many points is that worth?
What's it worth in goal difference?
What's it worth in goal difference, yeah. And if you know that Alisson's far better than the typical goalkeeper at saving shots, that's going to be worth so many points every season, and then you can say, right, sound, he's worth a world record fee then. Whereas if you're paying a world record fee for a player who's not doing that, Kepa, you're getting taken to the cleaners.
You are indeed. Just a really quick one, just to show that it doesn't always work that way, and I don't want to be mean to him. Might have had a difficult season for a variety of reasons, but Jason Steele at Brighton, minus 3.63 goals saved above average, so actually costing his side 4 up against the average there over the course of the campaign. As I say, I don't want to be mean about him, and he's a good goalkeeper with his feet. I think he reads the game really, really well as we go through. We also want to touch on race charts. I want to move on to this, how race charts can mainly help tell the story of a game, but also that the story of the game comes with more context, and the context is down to the person who's analysing them to bear in mind. So here is Liverpool 2, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0, second to last game of the season. Liverpool end up with 3.94 expected goals versus Wolves' 0.42. But on around the 20-minute mark, 22-minute mark, Wolves go down to 10 men. It's at Anfield. It's all the other stuff that's going on, the emotion around it. But Wolves are down to 10 men. So Liverpool are dominant, and we're able to, though partially, Josh, it's important to say, we can look at that dominance, we can look at the numbers, but because we watch Liverpool, we know that a key context of that dominance is Wolves go down to 10 men.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see that by Wolves pretty much flatlining for the entire rest of the game, apart from one little shot on the 70th minute, yeah. But apart from that, they don't really create anything, and that's Liverpool penning them in.
Yeah, because they go down to 10 men. So you remember that one. This is one you won't remember as fondly. Manchester United 2, Liverpool 2. Liverpool utterly dominant, and Manchester United utterly flatlined until the 50th minute. Liverpool get in at half-time. XG is closer to 2, I think it is fair to say, than 1.5. Created a ton of opportunities. But again, you can see a couple of things, Josh. One is often the smallish steps up the ladder up to that point. You can see that the extent of Liverpool's dominance. But again, you're able to say Liverpool have hard lines here, but simultaneously, you also have to finish.
Yeah, 100%. But if you look at Liverpool's race map there, you know, you can see that literally from the first minute, you're creating consistent chances throughout the entire game. Some of them are more valuable than others as well. That looks like a really, really good attacking performance for Liverpool. It's just in terms of finishing. What was the XG that Liverpool posted?
3.7.
So Liverpool
versus 0.78.
So if Liverpool had finished to a normal level, you're looking at about 4 goals. But in reality, we scored twice. So we drew the game. But in terms of what you're creating, at least in attack, that is as good as, you know, that's winning most games for you.
It is indeed, as you're going all the way through, but you do have to finish. Also, it would have changed the way the scoreboard operates, and we've talked about that. Is Everton, it's important to point out when you get beat, and this is a really good example of one that you can look at and you can go, well, it's not hard lines. Everton go 1-0 up with a flurry of chances. By the time we get to effectively the 35th minute, Everton are approaching 1.5 expected goals over the course of the game, and Liverpool have barely had a meaningful shot by the 35th minute. You know, you can look at that and you can look where it ends up, and if someone just looked at the raw numbers, if they came up on Match of the Day 1.95 to Everton 1.8, and people would say, then people would argue with it and go, the XG is wrong. This race map tells us the story of what is a really poor Liverpool performance and a really well executed Everton performance, doesn't it, Josh?
Yeah, it looks like Everton take a lead. Looks like Everton kind of get Liverpool on the break every now and then with decent regularity, really. And Liverpool's means of getting back in the game by the looks of it is just loads of really small, low quality shots, you know, and it doesn't end up going that way.
Exactly, and you get to see that there. So this is how you use these race maps. When you get to see them, this is how they operate for themselves. And then lastly, there's the Crystal Palace one I wanted to point out as well, another Liverpool defeat. Go behind early Liverpool, but it's worth pointing out that it's by some distance the most valuable effort in the game up to that point when Crystal Palace make it 1-0 on around the 13th minute. And then from there, there's two things that strike me that happen, Josh. Liverpool are creating some half-decent opportunities, but then around the 75th minute is when Palace create their last good opportunity, which if I remember rightly was for Mateta, and then Liverpool break and go up the other end, and Jones creates his excellent chance when he runs through, and he really should score. And at that point, the XG would say Liverpool deserve to be back on level terms. It would be about 1.5 to Liverpool, 1.09 to Palace. But Palace do what we talked about Liverpool doing in the previous episode. Whether you like it or not, they just shut up shop. And Liverpool do get chances, don't get me wrong. Liverpool do continue to create a chance here and there. But what you actually get to see here is Palace choose the rearguard action a little bit at that point. And Liverpool, because they don't flip the scoreboard, they can't therefore break the game back open.
Yeah, and you could argue though in that case, you know, is it the right decision for Palace to have done that? Because even though they've got obviously flatline there and they've kind of held on for the rest of the game, Liverpool have created meaningful stuff.
Well, almost like there's almost a goal worth of expected goals after that. But so if we take the Jones one out, there's almost a goal worth of expected goals after that point. Liverpool, the Jones chance puts Liverpool to about 1.9 xG. Liverpool end up with 2.88.
Yeah, so in 2.88, we didn't even score. You know what I mean? So it is one of them finishing games again, really. But again, there's context behind it, Garden Palace.
Yeah, but I do want to point out the shot map for that one as well. 2.9 non-cumulative Liverpool against Palace. But you get to see in there where there are the low-value chances or the blocked chances. Anything that's not dark red is less good value as the colours move all the way along. The thing to point out as well is that the post-shot XG, and this is one of those games and there's times where I do want to argue with the eye and what people say afterwards, Josh. Like, I think there was a lot of praise for Dean Henderson post-match. The post-shot XG is 1.2. Don't get me wrong, he makes a great save from Diaz. But there were other Palace players, if you want to make a man of the match argument, who contributed a lot more. The issue here is the quality of Liverpool's finishing. Liverpool's finishing is marked. The post-shot XG on Liverpool's finishing is so much lower than the expected goals. It's such a poor day at the office for Liverpool in front of goal. Henderson makes one great save, but apart from that, I'm struggling to praise him.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned Henderson, actually, because one of the reasons I think an interesting line in the media over the past couple of years is that Alisson's been on the same level as Ederson, as like the best two in the league or whatever. Mate, if you look at the numbers, worlds apart. Ederson's really good with his feet, granted, but over the past couple of seasons, his shot-stopping numbers, based on what we're looking at here, are just bang average.
Well, I meant Dean Henderson in this instance.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's what I said, didn't I?
No, yeah, Ederson.
Oh, did I? No, using Ederson as a different example.
Sorry.
Just as in like, goalkeepers using like, being able, you can capture goalkeeping performance using numbers and things like that, and how Alisson compares to Ederson and stuff, and Dean Henderson in this case doing well, but not like breaking through the ceiling, is he?
Not off the charts, not off the charts at all. So that is important, and it does influence the other factors. I want to talk briefly about the situational finishing before I go into the trend lines. In this, I don't want to pull loads and loads of data because that's not the purpose of this show. We're not doing an analysis. But a key part of this is we talk about the scoreboard, play and how teams address the scoreboard. Players who score opening and equalising goals are as important, more important than players who don't. Players who can perform in all the game states, or maybe even, and someone like Diogo Jota is a mad example.
I was thinking of Jota, yeah.
He's a mad example, isn't he, of one who actually arguably performs better when the game state is more intense, more pressure.
Yeah, he's cold, isn't he? Very, very cold. Cole Palmer comes to mind as well as another player who's like that. Who's obviously got the nickname Cole Palmer, actually, which is interesting. But generally, I think when there's pressure on certain moments, players might finish a little bit worse and stuff like that. You might see that as a bit of a trend, but I've never actually looked into that too much stuff.
It's there, it's present. Yeah, it's present. And you can get to see it with certain players. One of the major reasons why Liverpool missed Jota when Mane left 22-23, but Jota was out injured for an extended period. There's a lot of people saying Liverpool are missing Mane, The season before, until his injury in the 21-22 season, the number of opening goals and equalising goals Jota got for that team was through the roof.
Yeah.
And it just helps. It helps you play football because it takes the pressure off the scoreboard. It means everyone can play with a bit more freedom and relax a little bit.
It means the opposition have got to come out a little bit more, which is huge for Liverpool in the transition. So.
And those players who score opening goals, players who score equalising goals, players who've got that in their locker, they are of so much value to football teams. It's immense. Last thing we want to talk about on this one then is how the trend lines operate. So the way that the trend lines are used most of the time is to show you a rolling average. So a rolling 10-game average of expected goals created and expected goals conceded. This is Liverpool's, if you're looking at it over the course of last season. Liverpool end up really in a really good place on it, which is ironic given the criticism that Liverpool's end of season gets. And that's why even with a rolling 10-game average, game state is a thing. The Crystal Palace game that we've just talked about is in here. But Liverpool, as we said before, the part of the reason why they're banging on the door all the way through is because they're not comfortable in the game. Liverpool aren't in a situation where they can go 2-0 up and say that's that. Liverpool having to continually play. So it's an interesting one, this, Josh, because Liverpool's trend line here is exceptional. It's approaching sort of 2.6 as a rolling average versus circa around 1 as a conceding average. Any gap that's one goal on a rolling 10-game average is a side that's showing brilliant skill.
Yeah, well, it's a tight one on the side, really, isn't it? I think that, and this is why, towards the back end of the season, a lot of people putting the problems down to Liverpool not being able to finish chances. There's your evidence. The chances were still getting created. We just weren't converting them for a period, and you end up getting stung. But for the most part, the attack was far better, or far busier than our defence. and that's generally what you want.
But it's a game state thing, and that's why what's interesting in this is you get to see similar gaps. Arsenal's attacking performance actually declines over the course of the season. Their rolling average ends up about 1.7. They conceded those about 0.7, 0.6, 0.7. You get to see that there. City's, again, end the season looking pretty strong, similar to Arsenal. But neither of them are popping in an attacking sense. Liverpool are popping in an attacking sense, and that's because they're chasing games.
Yeah.
City and Arsenal have been able to play last 20s here, saying we're all right, we're barely going to create a thing because we're winning 2-0.
Yeah, and Liverpool just generally do give away a little bit more than them two sides, and I think that's something that's got to be addressed in the next year.
It has indeed. And just as a mini bit of analysis, I just want to talk you through. So this is where Villa ended up last season. If you look at that purple line, this feeling that Villa crawled over the line a little bit, which Villa supporters, if they're watching this, might resent, but that they were, beginning to ship opportunities, and that's there in those numbers. Last 10 games rolling average, you can see that they're conceding those goals. Villa finished 4th. Liverpool's trend line in this is much closer to Arsenal's and Manchester City's than it is to Villa's. And Newcastle's is really interesting to look at as well. Newcastle ends up in pretty close to Champions League level rolling average. They finished 7th in the table, but by the end of the season, created about 1.8, conceded about 1. That's a really healthy trend line. It's there's big gaps in the graph because they were doing so well at different points. But you can see there at the end of the season, Josh, what we can see is the middle part is where Newcastle's injuries have kicked in and they're really suffering. Yeah. The start is from the back of the previous season, and the end is them approaching the direction of traffic back to what they were at the end of the previous season.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. It tells a story, and especially in the middle where the defence becomes a bit busier than the attack, which is obviously never what you want. That's when Newcastle were crippled. That's when they had no players. So it is interesting how these things work.
And you get to see them. If you looked at any given in that run, I think there's a game where Newcastle just beat Villa. Yeah. In the run where it looks terrible, they just beat Villa. But in the average, you could see this is when Newcastle were on their knees.
Yeah, and they got better towards the end of the season because they get players back. And next season they've got no Europe, I don't think.
No Europe.
We might see them again.
I think we will see them again.
There, yeah.
I think we'll see them again. Lastly, I just wanted to point out Burnley because that's a side that got relegated. But by the end of the season, they're actually creating more opportunities than they managed for an extended period of time. And I think that, again, to the eye test, when people watching Burnley at the end of the season, last 5 or 6 games, they felt like they'd really got to grips with it a bit more. So it's just striking that, Josh, that they're able to produce that bit more at the end of the campaign.
It is, but at the same time, if you look at that you can see why they've gone down.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Consistently throughout the whole season, their defence has been busier than their attack. You're not gonna win a game consistently. That's the case, mate. So
it's the way shots operate.
Exactly.
Shots at everything.
Yeah,
shots. Do you think we've explained that well enough? Are you pleased? Do you feel we've nailed down that shots at everything?
I am. Shots are all that matters. Yeah.
They are all that matters. Josh will tell you it 100 times. How you get them is different. How you progress the ball is different. All those bits and pieces. We will do them on the next one of this that we do properly. But if you've got any questions from the first 2 videos, neila@theanfieldwrap.com. Email them over. There's the Facebook subscribers group, put them in that. There's our leveler, you can put them in that. You can just ask me or Josh on Twitter. And we'll do a live talk in Reds, probably second week of August, after I get back from the tour, be on a Thursday in there, and me and Josh will sweep all of that up, and then we'll go through how ball progressions and pressures work. We just wanted to sort this out first. Hopefully it makes sense, but if it doesn't, give us a shout, and we'll sort it out between us. See you later.